decided to go with an MBA, and I think that has made all the difference. That's why I wanted to share a little bit of what I thought, how I made my decisions, and how those decisions impacted my life, my career.
We are going to now begin the MBA Essentials segment of our program, and where we talk about the different elements in the application process that we hope is going to give you the edge when you do the application.
I'm not actually an MBA student, but more of a test expert. The GMAT is a standardized test, which means it's basically a metric that's used to compare disparate candidates from around the world. It doesn't go beyond a high school level in mathematics, but that doesn't make it easy. The GMAT has ways of combining various skills in completely unique and unfamiliar ways. Basically, the GMAT itself is challenging in several ways. It's not exactly about the skills that are tested, but the fact that it's a reasoning test. Okay, it's always trying to throw unfamiliar material at you, okay, and trying to force you to adapt to that, to look beyond vocabulary and jargon and recognize reasoning.
Now, the downside of this, sometimes we get asked, will you take my best verbal and my best quantitative and somehow mush them together? We're not able to do that in most cases. I mean, again, there may be schools that do.
Again, schools don't have minimums, but I think it's also important to look at what they consider the middle 80 percentile. And the middle 80s is kind of like what we call the big sweet spot. So most admissions committees are comfortable admitting folks within that middle 80%.
If you come up with a very, very strong quantitative score, but the verbal section is low, then you won't be considered as being able to cope with the fast pace of the program academically.
So you're trying to tell each admissions committee a whole story. I'm sure that all of us, I know we have seen people with perfect test scores that were not admitted to the program because the story was lacking somewhere else or another part of the application.
That doesn't mean that if you don't have good statistical background, you shouldn't apply to an MBA program. We admit artists that has never taken statistics. We admit poets that has never taken statistics. Or we admit people who have math backgrounds, never written a report until they write their essay. We will improve on those things if you prove us that you have the potential to improve on them. We all want a very diverse classroom. We want engineers there, we want artists there, architects there, poets there, and that's a perfect classroom for us. So don't let your background to kind of stop you from applying to the program.
The most important thing in any application is never leave us with question marks, because all we get are your bits of paper, the stuff you've written. We look at the whole thing, but if there are any question marks, until we get to the interview stage, if you're invited to interview, we can't ask you to answer those questions for us.
There are very, very few 3.8, 3.9 transcripts in any Turkish university. And actually there's a word that Turks use, inek. The word inek, which means cow. And I don't know why. I don't know how it is, but inek is, they use it as a bookworm, pretty much, but they're using the word cow for it.
What you get from the program is not only what comes from the faculty, but it's also the fantastic advantage that you have to exchange perspectives on business issues with people who come from different sectors. So we're all on the outlook for people with work experience. There's no formative work experience for an MBA or an MBA applicant. There's no format that you should stick to. It's just you reach a point where what the program can bring you and what you can bring to the program in terms of discussions with your or exchanges with your classmates just makes sense.
One of the main things, and I'm sure all the programs here emphasize leadership. Leadership is one of them. And one of the kind of the first rule of leadership is you can only learn leadership by experiencing it. And we want our students to experience leadership while in this class as well.
Typical questions are why an MBA, why now, and why from this university? How are you unique? What you're trying to do is sell yourself. You should be talking about your community involvement. You should be talking about the institution that you're trying to get into. Make sure you reference things for that particular school, reference clubs, word limits. Some of them are 300 words, 500, 750, 1,000. But if they ask you for 1,000 words, don't write 1,100 words. If they ask you for 1,000, don't write 500 words. Write somewhere close to what they said their limit is. Again, just sell yourself. By the time we finish reading your essays, we should know everything there is to know about you. You should be able to take your resume and your essay, is what we do at Hopkins, and give it to the Career Services Office and say, are you able to sell this person to an employer? Change the name of the institution on your essays. Repeat, change the name. Does everybody get what I'm saying? So if you're applying to Georgetown at GW, don't send the Georgetown one to GW.
There's no national MBA application. All of our applications are different, so it's very, very important that you check, especially with the interview, because often you'll do an interview on campus, and if you're trying to make plans for visiting, it's something you have to prepare for. So I'm sure that there's going to be some question for all of us that gets at leadership, or there's going to be a question that probably gets at teamwork. Whatever you do, don't rehearse it to the point where I ask you a question and you pull out your notebook and you answer some question that you've rehearsed. That's bad. Ask questions that you can't find online or you can't just look up. I mean, that always stuns me at the end after I felt like we had a good conversation. Somebody asks a really obvious question. They might ask, like, how long is your program? You know, go away.
We don't give any instructions to our interviewers, so maybe one of them could ask you for a case study. This is not, they are free to do what they want.
Do you do similar work that the associates do, even though you quote unquote you don't have that title, you know, but you have become the go-to girl or go-to guy at the firm? Would your boss feel comfortable with you taking that meeting? You know, or would your boss say, Michael, I have this important client coming, do not talk to that person. If you do, we'll lose luck, just stay away, you know? Or would your boss say, that's okay. I mean, I can't make it, but I have confidence in this person to actually, you know, handle the situation. Don't find the most important person that barely knows you. So that the CEO of the firm that you work for, that you see 3 times a year in the elevator, and you say hello to that person, and they say, you know, or get my coffee, or, you know, so that person is not the best person to write your recommendation, but that supervisor, right, who can provide real anecdotes, real stories. When we're reading thousands of essays, you get pretty good at reading essays.